The ring had been in my pocket for 11 months. 11 months. I know that number the way you know your own birthday. My mother's ring. Thin gold band, small stone, a little scratch on the side from the day she dropped it in the hospital sink and laughed and said, "Now it looks like me." Used, but still here. She wasn't still here. She died in a pediatric ward with peeling paint and one broken window that nobody fixed for 2 years. I was 22. I remember standing in that hallway thinking, someone should build these places better. So I did. 6 years later, I designed a children's hospital wing, and that night, 400 people in a ballroom were going to hand me an award for it. And I was going to propose to Vanessa in front of every single one of them. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. I fixed my tie in the mirror of the men's room for the 4th time. My hands were shaking. I laughed at myself. 28 years old, I'd stood in front of city councils and angry investors, and once, memorably, a man who threw a set of blueprints at my head and a piece of jewelry in my jacket was going to kill me. I checked my phone. Nothing. I texted her. "You close?" 3 dots. Then nothing. Then 3 dots again. Then, finally. Julian's birthday ran long. It's a whole thing. I can't just walk out. Start without me, babe. I'll watch the stream. So proud of you. Ha. I read it maybe 6 times. The words didn't change. They just got heavier. I walked back into the ballroom and sat down. My sister Emma was already there, in the dress she hated, in the heels she hated more, scrolling her phone with the face of someone waiting for a fight. The chair on my left was empty. "She's not coming," Emma said. Not a question. "She's coming late. Danny." She said she'd watch the stream. Emma put her phone down. That's when I knew it was serious. Emma never puts her phone down. 6 years, she said quietly. 6 years, and she picked her to a birthday party. It's her boss. It's work. You don't just leave your bosses. Say his name. I stopped. Say it, Emma said. You never say it. You always say her boss. Say his name. I looked at the empty chair. Julian, I said. Julian Marsh. Emma nodded slowly, like a doctor confirming something bad. Yeah, that's what I thought. A waiter came by and asked if the seat was taken. I said yes. I said someone was coming. He took the chair anyway to another table, and I let him, because arguing about a chair in a room full of people who thought I was successful felt like the most humiliating thing a man could do. So there was just a gap now, a hole in the row where she was supposed to be. Emma reached over and took my hand. She hadn't done that since Mum's funeral. "Do you have it?" she asked. "Have what?" "Danny." I didn't answer. "You brought Mum's ring," she said. "Didn't you?" I looked straight ahead at the stage. "Danny, tell me you didn't bring Mum's ring." The lights went down, and a voice came over the speakers. "Our final award of the evening, the National Young Architect Award, goes to a man whose design will save children's lives for the next 50 years. Please welcome Daniel Reyes." 400 people stood up. 400 people clapped. And I stood up too, with a speech in my left pocket and my dead mother's ring in my right, and I walked toward that stage, past the gap where she should have been, and somewhere between the table and the first step, something inside my chest went very, very quiet. I had waited 6 years for Vanessa Cole. I stopped waiting on that staircase. The stage lights are hotter than you think. Nobody tells you that. You stand up there and you can't see faces, just a wall of white light and the soft shine of glasses and phone screens. It's strange. You're in front of 400 people, and you've never been more alone. They handed me the award. Heavy glass, sharp corners. I remember thinking, this could hurt someone. I put my speech card on the podium. The speech had 3 parts. I'd written it on a plane. Part 1, thank the firm. Part 2, thank the families. Part 3, the part I'd rehearsed in the shower, in the car, in the mirror, for 11 months. Thank Vanessa, and then ask her to marry me. Part 3 was underlined, twice. Thank you, I said, and the microphone made my voice sound like a stranger's. I want to thank Wen and Associates. Arthur, you hired a kid who couldn't draw a straight line, and you never once made me feel like a charity case. Laughter. Somewhere in the back, Arthur Wen raised his glass. I want to thank the families, the parents I interviewed. 41 of you, let me sit in your kitchens and ask you the worst questions of your lives. What was the room like? What did you stare at? What did you need? And every one of you answered, this building is yours, I just drew it. Applause, real applause, the kind that comes in a wave. And then I lifted the photo. I'd taped it to the back of the speech card. My mother, 44, in a green sweater, squinting into the sun. My mum died in a room with a broken window, I said. Nobody fixed it. It wasn't anybody's job, so I made it my job. The room went completely silent. 400 people, silent. And here's where it happened. Here's where my mouth was supposed to say her name. I looked down at the crowd. I found our table. I found the gap in the row where a chair used to be, and Emma, sitting next to nothing, staring up at me with her hand over her mouth. And I heard myself say, and finally, I want to thank my future wife. The room erupted. The woman who showed up for me, I said, and my voice didn't shake at all, which is the part that still scares me. Not the woman who said the right things, the woman who showed up. Thank you for being in this room tonight. I stepped back from the microphone. I never said her name. Not once. I walked off that stage, and 400 people were on their feet screaming, and I could feel my own heartbeat in my teeth. Backstage, my phone was already on fire. "Bro, did you just propose on live stream?" "Danny Omja," she said yes. Crying. Actually crying. Congrats, man. "Where's the ring pic?" 40 messages, 60, 90. And then the phone rang, and it was her. I stood in a concrete hallway that smelled like floor cleaner, and I answered. "Danny." Vanessa was crying, laughing and crying. Behind her, I could hear music, glasses, a room full of people having the best night of their lives. "You idiot. You sweet, sweet idiot. You proposed on TV. On TV. I'm coming home right now. I'm getting my coat. Vanessa. I can't believe you did that without me there. Oh my God, I'm the worst. I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you, I swear. Vanessa. Everyone here is watching the clip. Julian's playing it on the big screen. He says you're a romantic. And that's the part that did it. Not the party. Not the birthday. Julian's playing it on the big screen. She was standing in another man's house, watching my proposal on his television, in a room full of his friends, holding, I would bet everything I owned, a glass of his champagne. I closed my eyes. "Vanessa," I said, "I wasn't talking about you." The music kept playing on her end, but she didn't say anything at all. She came home at 2:14 a.m. I know because I was sitting in the dark on the living room floor, with my back against the couch, watching the numbers change on the microwave clock. I hadn't turned on a single light. I don't know why. It just felt right, sitting in the dark in my own house, waiting for a woman I'd loved for 6 years. The key turned, the door opened, and in she came, heels in one hand, glitter on her cheek, mascara halfway down her face. She saw me on the floor, and she stopped. "Don't sit in the dark like a psycho," she said. That was the first thing she said to me. Not sorry. Not I love you. Not explain. "Turn on the light then," I said. She turned it on. It was too bright for both of us. "Okay," she said, dropping her heels. "Okay, that was a bit cruel thing to do, Danny. You humiliated me in front of the entire internet. My mother called me. My mother. You weren't there. I was at a Tom birthday party. You were at his birthday party. He's my boss. Daniel," her voice cracked up an octave. "He's like a brother to me. I've known him since I was 19. He gave me my job. God, you're so insecure. You always have been." I stood up, slowly. My legs had gone numb from sitting. "Vanessa," I said, "I want to ask you something, and I want you to think before you answer." She folded her arms. "What?" I took out my phone. I'd spent 4 hours in the dark doing something I'd never done in 6 years. I'd gone through the party hashtag, 41 photos, public, tagged, time-stamped, posted by people who had no idea who I was. I turned the screen toward her. "Photo 1, I said, "you're next to him." "So?" "Photo 6, you're next to him." "Daniel." "Photo 11, photo 14, photo 19, photo 23. I kept swiping. My voice stayed flat, which I think frightened her more than shouting would have. 41 photos, Vanessa. You are standing beside Julian Marsh in every single one. It's his party. Where else would I? You're holding the cake." She stopped. "In photo 29, I said, "you're carrying the cake out. Not his mother, not his assistant, you." She said nothing. And then I swiped one more time, and I held the phone very still. "And in photo 36, I said, "you're wiping frosting off a little boy's face." I watched her. I want to be honest about this, because it's the moment everything turned. I watched my girlfriend of 6 years look at a photograph of herself, and I saw her eyes move, quick, like a mouse, and I saw her decide what to say, and it took her 1 second too long. 1 second. "He's a co-worker's son," she said. "Which co-worker? Does it matter?" "Which co-worker, Vanessa? I don't have to be interrogated. In my own house." She grabbed her heels off the floor. "You know what? You want to have a fight? Have it with yourself. I'm going to bed." And she went to bed. That's the part nobody believes when I tell this story. She went to bed. She washed her face and she brushed her teeth, and she got under the blanket we bought together, and she went to sleep in the house we shared, and I sat in the living room, with the light still on, looking at a photo of a child I had never seen before in my life. I didn't sleep in that house. I took my keys and went down to the parking garage and slept in my car with my jacket over me, and my mother's ring was still in the pocket, digging into my ribs all night like it was trying to tell me something. At 6 a.m. I called Arthur Wen. He picked up on the second ring. 61 years old, widowed, and awake before the sun like every old man I've ever respected. "Daniel," he said. That was quite a speech. "Arthur." My voice came out wrecked. "I think I've been stupid for 6 years. He was quiet for a moment. "Are you asking me, or telling me?" "I don't know what I'm doing." "Then let me tell you what you're not going to do," Arthur said. "You're not going to ask her again. You're going to ask, and she's going to answer, and you're going to believe her, because you love her, and that's what love does. It makes you stupid on purpose." I pressed my head against the steering wheel. "So stop asking her for the truth," Arthur said. "Go find it." 2 days later, I found it, and it was so much worse than another man. I went to work, because there was nowhere else to go. That's the part they don't put in the movies. Your life explodes and you still have a meeting at 9. You still have to nod. You still have to say morning to the security guard. And he still says, "Congratulations, Mr. Reyes." Saw the clip, and you still have to smile like your face isn't broken. The site was on the east end of the hospital. Concrete, rebar, mud, 40 men in orange vests. My building, 3 floors of it, half-born, sticking out of the ground like a rib cage. That's where I met Claire Bennett. She was standing in the middle of the future recovery ward, which at that point was just a rectangle of dirt, arguing with my site foreman, in scrubs. Scrubs. On a construction site, with a hard hat 2 sizes too big sliding down her forehead. I'm just saying, if the windows don't open, then they don't open, and you tell me right now, because I have spent 2 years. "Ma'am, I just pour the concrete." "Then get me somebody who doesn't just pour the concrete." "That'd be me," I said. She turned around. She looked at me. She looked at my award night face, which was grey and unshaved, and clearly hadn't slept in a bed. "Oh," she said. "You." "Me. Do the windows open?" I blinked. "What?" "The windows." She pointed at the rectangle of dirt. In the recovery rooms. Do they open? Because I've worked in 6 wards, and in 5 of them the windows were sealed. And you know what a mother does when her kid is dying? She stands at the window. That's it. That's all she can do. And if that window is sealed shut, she's just standing in front of glass. I stood there in the mud. They open, I said. 8 inches. Safety limit. Claire Bennett let out a breath, like she'd been holding it since 2019. Okay, she said. Okay, good. Who? You? Claire, head of pediatric nursing. I'm the one who wrote the 40-page proposal that got this thing funded. So if the windows didn't open, I was going to lie down in that dirt and die. She stuck out her hand. Her nails were bitten to nothing. I was at your award thing, by the way. 3rd row. I stared at her. You were at the ceremony. On my night off, I bought my own ticket. $60. That is criminal for chicken. She shrugged. I clapped so hard, I dropped my program. Somebody stepped on it. And that was it. That was the whole conversation. She didn't say anything about the proposal. She didn't say, "Who's the future wife?" She didn't know. She didn't care. She wanted to talk about ceiling heights and door widths, and whether the sinks would be low enough for a 5-year-old to reach. For the first time in 6 years, I had a conversation with a woman where nobody was managing me. I got in my car afterward and sat there for 10 minutes, and I couldn't figure out why my chest hurt. Then I did. She showed up. A woman I had never met, who owed me nothing. Bought a $60 ticket on her only night off, and sat in the 3rd row and clapped until she dropped her program. And Vanessa Cole, who I had loved for 6 years, who had a chair with her name on it, went to a birthday party. My phone buzzed. Vanessa, 18 texts since morning. We need to talk. Danny, please. You're being childish. I love you. You know I love you. Call me. Call me. I put the phone face down, and then it rang, and it wasn't her. It was Emma. Danny. Her voice was wrong, flat and fast. Where are you? Work. Why? Are you sitting down? Emma, I need you to open the joint savings account. Right now. On your phone. Do it while I'm talking to you. Why? Do it, Danny. I opened it. We had $63,000 in that account, 6 years of it. Every bonus, every overtime check, every Christmas from Arthur. It was the house fund. It was the wedding fund. I hadn't looked at it in months because I didn't need to, because it just sat there, growing, the way trust does. The balance said $1,847.22. I heard myself make a sound I've never made before. Emma, I said. Emma, where's the money? Scroll down, she said quietly. Wire transfers. 11 months of them. I scrolled. 11 months. 22 transfers. Some 4,000, some 6. One for $11,000, sent on a Tuesday in March while I was in Denver at a conference, while I was on the phone with her that night saying, I miss you. While she said, I miss you too, hurry home. Every single transfer went to the same place. Marsh Development had an office on the 14th floor with a wall made entirely of glass. Of course it did. I didn't have an appointment. I walked past the front desk and a girl said, Sir? Sir? And I kept walking because there is a certain kind of calm that comes over you when you have already lost everything and security can smell it and they get out of the way. Julian Marsh was standing at that glass wall with a golf club, not golfing, just holding it. 34, good suit, the kind of face that gets called charming by people who've never been hurt by it. He turned around and he smiled at me. Daniel Reyes, he said, the architect. You took $61,000. Ah. He set the club down like he was relieved we could skip the small talk. You want a drink? I want my money. It's not your money. It was in a joint account. That's what joint means. He poured himself a drink anyway. She invested it in me. in the Riverside project, voluntarily, enthusiastically, actually. She was very excited. She stole it. She chose. He took a sip. That's what's eating you, isn't it? Not the money, the choosing. I stood in the middle of his office and I didn't move. You know what your problem is, Julian said, and he said it kindly, which was somehow so much worse. You're boring. Daniel, you are a genuinely boring man. You draw hospitals for dead people. You've had the same haircut since you were 20. You had a ring in your pocket for a year. I froze. Yes, she told me. She told me everything. We laughed about it, not cruelly, affectionately. She said, he's going to ask me, and I'm going to have to say yes, and then that's my whole life. He shrugged. That's not me being cruel. That's a direct quote. I couldn't feel my hands. So no, Julian said. She didn't come to me because I'm handsome. She came to me because, with you, she could see the end of the road, every mile of it, and it terrified her. Give me the money. No. Then You'll what? You'll what? He laughed. Actually laughed. Sue me? On what? An architect's salary? Come on. And then he did the thing. He turned the photo frame on his desk around to face me. I think he thought it would break me. I think he'd been waiting to do it. 3 people in the photo. Julian, in a party hat, laughing. Vanessa, beside him, in a blue dress, holding a cake. And between them, a little boy blowing out 4 candles, dark hair, her nose. Her exact nose. That's Noah, Julian said. He's 4. The room got very far away. The party, he said, wasn't for me, Daniel. My birthday's in September. He tapped the glass. It was his 4th birthday. She's missed a lot of things for you, over the years. She wasn't going to miss that. 4 years old. 4 years ago, Vanessa went abroad for 8 months. Work assignment, she said. Overseas client. She barely called. And when she came home she was thin and quiet and she cried in the shower where she thought I couldn't hear. And she told me she'd been sick. And I held her. I held her and I said, you never have to go through anything alone again. I put my hand on the back of a chair to stay upright. I didn't shout. I want that on the record. I didn't swing at him. I don't know why. Maybe because hitting him would have made it a fight, and a fight is between equals, and I understood in that second that I was not talking to a man. I was talking to a hole in the world. I only asked him one thing. Does she love you? Julian Marsh looked at me for a long moment, and then he said, she loves whoever's winning. I made it as far as the parking garage before I threw up. I knelt on the concrete between 2 SUVs, shaking, 28 years old, with my mother's ring still in my jacket, and when it passed, I stood up. I wiped my mouth. I got in my car, and I did not cry. Not then. I opened the glove box, and I took out a pen, and I started writing things down. Dates, amounts, names, every single thing I could remember. Because Julian Marsh had made one mistake in that room. He'd told me the truth. Show me the drafts, Arthur said. We were in his office at 11 p.m. with the lights off except for one lamp. 40 years of blueprints on the walls. A photo of his wife, dead 6 years, still on the desk facing his chair. Which drafts? Riverside. He didn't look up. You bid on Riverside 2 years ago. You lost. We lost to Marsh Development. Yes. Arthur folded his hands. We did. Show me your drafts. So I pulled them up. My preliminary sketches. The ones that never left my laptop. The ones I'd worked on at the kitchen table at midnight, while Vanessa sat across from me on her phone, saying, "These are so good, babe, can you send me one? I just want to look at it." And I'd sent them. Of course I'd sent them, she asked. She was proud of me. That's what I told myself. Arthur opened the winning Marsh proposal, the public one, the one on the city website, and put it beside mine. The angle of the atrium, the stagger of the balconies, the stupid little cantilever over the east entrance that I invented at 2 a.m. because I was bored. Identical, not similar. Identical. Arthur, I whispered. Yes. They're mine. Yes. I sat down slowly. How long have you known? I suspected 2 years ago. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes, and for a second, he looked every day of 61. But suspicion isn't proof, and proof was on your laptop, and I was not going to go through your private files behind your back. He put the glasses back on. So I waited. And I hoped you'd never need it. I need it. I know. I ran my hand down my face. My heart was going so fast I could hear it. I can... Him, I said. Arthur, I can end him. The license board, the press. I can burn his hole. Yes. Arthur nodded. You can. You can also do it legally. Slower, cleaner, documented. He leaned forward. Only one of those lets you sleep for the rest of your life, Daniel. Choose carefully. You only get to be this angry once. I sat in that chair for a long time. I thought about my mother's window, the one nobody fixed, because it wasn't anybody's. Legal, I said. Arthur smiled, a small, tired, proud smile, and picked up the phone. It took 9 days, metadata from the original files, timestamps that predated the Marsh submission by 14 months, bank records showing $61,000 flowing from a joint account into a company owned by a man who had used my drawings to win a contract worth $2 million. Not a rumor, not a rant on the internet. Documents. I handed all of it to the firm's lawyer and to the state licensing board on a Thursday morning, and then I drove home and I packed her things. I want to tell you I threw everything in garbage bags. I want to tell you I broke something. I didn't. I folded every sweater. I wrapped her perfume bottles in a towel so they wouldn't clink. I found the ugly ceramic frog she bought in Portland, and I wrapped that too. I labeled the boxes in marker, kitchen, winter, books. Because I wasn't cruel, I was just done. And those are two completely different things, and it took me 28 years to learn the difference. She came home when I was on the 3rd box. She stood in the doorway with her keys in her hand, and she watched me fold a scarf, and I watched her face fall apart in real time. Danny, your winter stuff's by the door. Danny. Stop. There's a box in the car too. I couldn't fit the... I'll leave him. Her voice broke on it. She dropped her bag. She actually dropped down onto her knees on our living room floor, and she grabbed the bottom of my shirt like a child. I'll leave him. I'll leave the job. I'll leave everything. I'll tell you the whole truth, all of it, just look at me. Daniel, look at me. I looked at her. 6 years. The girl who laughed at my bad drawings. The girl who fell asleep on my shoulder on the bus. The girl who held my hand at my mother's funeral and said, I'm not going anywhere. I loved her. I want to be honest. Even kneeling on that floor, having done what she did, I loved her. That doesn't switch off. Anyone who tells you it switches off is lying to you. I knelt down so we were level. Vanessa, I said, you didn't leave him for 6 years. She was shaking her head over and over. You left, I said, and I stood up, and I carried the last box out to the hall, and I closed the door behind me. Here's what nobody tells you about revenge. It's slow, it's boring, it happens in emails you never see, in rooms you're not invited to, over months when you are just living, buying milk, going to work, wondering if you did the right thing. I didn't watch Julian Marsh fall. I heard about it, in pieces, the way you hear about weather in another country. Week 3. The licensing board opened a formal review. Riverside was frozen. A junior guy at my firm mentioned it at lunch like it was gossip about a stranger. Week 7. The city pulled the contract, $1 million, gone in a single letter. Week 9. Investors started calling their lawyers, and then Julian Marsh did the thing that men like Julian Marsh always do. He looked around the sinking boat, and he found the smallest person on it, and he threw her over the side. I read the statement on my phone at a red light. Marsh Development regrets that a member of its administrative staff mishandled proprietary documents without leadership's knowledge. That individual is no longer with the company. That individual. He didn't even use her name. 6 years she'd known him. She carried his son. She carried his And when it came time to bleed, he handed her the knife and told the world she'd done it to herself. Emma called me that night. She got fired, she said. I know. Danny. A pause. His mother filed for custody of the kid. I closed my eyes. She can't fight it, Emma said. She can't afford a lawyer, because the money. I know where the money went. We were quiet on the phone for a while. Are you okay? Emma asked, and her voice was so small. Because you don't sound happy, and I thought this was the part where you'd be happy. Yeah, I said. Me too. I saw Julian one more time. The licensing board hearing. Room 4B, city building, fluorescent lights, folding chairs, and a table with a jug of water that nobody touched. That's what it looks like when a man's life ends. Not a courtroom, a room with a water jug. I testified for 40 minutes. I brought the drafts. I brought the timestamps. Arthur sat behind me the entire time with his hands folded, and he never said a word, and he never left. Julian didn't bring a lawyer. That's how sure he was. At the break, he found me by the vending machine. Daniel. I didn't turn around. You know she's finished, right? His voice was low and fast, and something in it had cracked. He was still in a good suit, but he hadn't shaved. Not me. Her. I'll survive this. I always survive this. But her? She'll never work in this city again. Is that what you wanted? I finally looked at him. And I want you to understand. I felt the pull. I felt it in my whole body. The urge to say, good. To say, she earned it. To be, for 1 second, as small as he was. I thought about my mother's window. Julian, I said, I'm not the one who put her name in that statement. His mouth opened. You did that, I said. You had one thing to protect, and you picked yourself. So don't stand in front of a vending machine and tell me. I finished her. I took my coffee out of the tray. I just told the truth. You're the one who threw her in front of it. He stared at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, Julian Marsh had absolutely nothing to say. For what it's worth, I said, walking past him, your son deserves better than both of us. They pulled his license, 11 days later. I didn't celebrate. I want to be honest about that too. I thought I would. I'd imagined it. A drink, a scream, Emma and me laughing on the balcony like it was New Year's. Instead, I drove to the site. I stood in the half-built recovery ward at 8 o'clock at night with concrete dust in my shoes, and I looked at the empty holes where the windows were going to go, and I thought about a 44-year-old woman in a green sweater who never got to see any of this. And I said out loud, to nobody, I fixed it, Mum. The wind came through the empty frames. That was my celebration. She called me on a Thursday. I almost didn't pick up. I let it ring 4 times. And then I did, because I'm not made of stone, and because 11 months of a ring in my pocket doesn't just evaporate. I could hear wind. She was outside somewhere. Danny? Vanessa. I'm in a parking lot. She laughed, and it was the worst sound I've ever heard. I'm sitting in a parking lot outside a lawyer's office who won't see me because I can't pay the retainer. Isn't that funny? Vanessa. He won't answer his phone. The laugh cracked in half. Danny. He won't answer his phone. Phone. Not once, not one time since the statement. I sat outside his building for 4 hours, and his assistant came down to talk to me. His assistant. I said nothing. I let her talk. She talked for 11 minutes. I timed it later, looking at my call log, which is a sick thing to do, and I did it anyway. She told me she was 19 when she met him. She told me he was her first everything, and she never really got out from under it. She told me she got pregnant at 24, and he told her to handle it quietly, and she went away for 8 months and came back and lied to me in this kitchen, and I held her. She told me she was going to tell me 100 times. She told me she practiced it in the car, and then she said the thing I still think about. You were the only good thing I ever had, she said, and I gave it away. For a man who won't answer his phone. The wind blew on her end. Do you hate me? She asked. And I thought about it. I really did. I sat with the question the way you sit with a splinter. No, I said. I don't hate you, Vanessa. I just don't know you. She started crying then, properly, the ugly kind. "I hope you fight for your son," I said. "I hope you win, I mean that." "Danny." "Goodbye, Vanessa." I hung up. And then I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, and I finally cried. For the first time since the ballroom, since the empty chair, since a woman I loved decided a birthday party was worth more than 6 years. I cried for maybe 2 minutes. And then there was a knock on my window. Claire Bennett, in scrubs, holding 2 coffees and a hard hat, squinting at me through the glass. I rolled the window down and tried to look like a man who had not just been sobbing. "You've been crying," she said. "No. You're crying now." "Yeah," I admitted. She handed me a coffee through the window. She didn't ask. She didn't hug me. She didn't say, "Poor you." She just said, "The wing got approved for full construction this morning, all 3 floors. They're pouring the 4th on Monday." I stared at her. "So?" She held up the hard hat. "You coming, or what?" 1 year later, they cut the ribbon on a Tuesday. 3 floors, 90 beds, a garden on the roof, because Claire wouldn't shut up about a garden on the roof. Recovery room windows that open 8 inches, every single one of them, because a mother needs somewhere to stand. And on the wall by the front doors, in steel letters 2 feet high, the Elena Reyes Pediatric Wing. My mother's name. Emma stood next to me and cried so hard she couldn't speak, which for Emma is a physical impossibility, and Arthur Wen stood behind us pretending very hard that his eyes were watering from the wind, indoors. They asked me to say a few words. I didn't write it down this time. No card, no underline, no pocket. "A year ago," I said, "I stood on a stage and gave a speech about a building. The crowd was smaller than the ballroom. Nurses, parents, a couple of kids in wheelchairs with balloons tied to the handles. It was better. I said a lot of things that night. I said one thing I didn't understand yet, and I've spent a year figuring it out. I looked out at them. I thanked my future wife, and a lot of people thought they knew who I meant. I didn't know who I meant." Somebody laughed, softly. "So here's what I learned." I put my hands in my pockets. "Love isn't what somebody promises you. Anybody can promise you anything. Love is who's in the room." I looked at the nurses in the front. At Claire, in scrubs, because she'd come straight off a 12-hour shift and hadn't even changed, and that right there, was the entire point. "It's who buys their own ticket," I said. "It's who claps until they drop the program. It's who shows up." They applauded, and I stepped down, and it was over, and it was mine. She was at the back. I saw her when the crowd started thinning. Standing by the door, alone, in a coat I didn't recognize. Older, thinner, hair pulled back. Vanessa waited until there was nobody near us. "I saw the plaque," she said. "Yeah. Elena." She smiled a little. "She'd have hated it. All that fuss. She'd have loved it. She'd have complained about it. And loved it." Vanessa nodded. She looked at the floor. "I have Noah on weekends," she said. "I got a job. It's not anything. It's fine. I'm fine." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. She looked up at me, and her eyes were wet, and there was a question in them, and I watched her decide not to ask it. "You really did it," she said. "You built the whole thing. You were invited to the first night too," I said. "It wasn't cruel," I said it gently. "It was just true, and I think she needed to hear one true thing from me, the way I'd needed to hear one from her, and never got it." She closed her eyes. "I know," she said. And she turned, and she walked out through the doors of the building I built, and I felt nothing sharp, no fire, no triumph, just the soft, clean ache of a door closing somewhere far away. I stood there for a second. Then I turned around, and Claire was watching me from across the lobby with her arms folded, in scrubs, with a coffee stain on her sleeve, exhausted, unimpressed, and so beautiful I forgot how to breathe. "You okay?" she said. "Yeah." "Was that her?" "That was her." Claire nodded slowly. "Do you want to talk about it?" "No," I said. "I want to talk about something else." and I reached into my jacket pocket, the same jacket, because I'm sentimental, and I'm not sorry, and I took out my mother's ring. 2 years, that ring had been in a pocket. 2 years, waiting for the right hand. Claire looked at it. Then she looked at me. Then she looked back at the ring. "Daniel Reyes," she said, in a very small voice. "Are you doing this in a hospital lobby? You're on shift in 10 minutes. That is not the point. You showed up," I said, and my voice finally shook. "Third row, $60 ticket on your night off, for a building, for a type stranger," she said. "I did it for a stranger. I know." I went down on one knee on the floor of the Elena Reyes pediatric wing, under my mother's name, in the middle of the only thing I ever built that mattered. That's why I'm asking. A year before, I'd stood in front of 400 people, and I'd thanked my future wife, and I hadn't been able to say her name. This time, I said it. "Claire," I said, "marry me." And she said yes. She said it fast. She said it before I even finished. She said it twice. And somewhere behind us, a kid in a wheelchair started yelling, and the whole lobby turned around, and Emma screamed, and Arthur Wen put his face in his hands and laughed. And I knelt there on the cold floor of my mother's building, holding my mother's ring, and I thought, it wasn't a lie, that night on the stage. I just hadn't met her yet. The end.